Hey, uh, today's just going to be kind of a relaxed video. I'm on a 3-day weekend for the holidays, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about, something, from the last couple of years that I think would be an interesting topic today. I don't really like to turn this channel into like a personal vlog because there's too many social media and YouTube channels out there where that is all they are people just ranting about their mediocre lives and about either trying to garner huge amounts of self adulation or self pity or self, I don't know, whatever. That's not what I want this channel to be about. I like to make it a diverse channel about a lot of different topics: philosophy, history, business. But in order to do so, I think occasionally I do have to discuss certain things in my personal life so you can understand who it is that's ranting on the camera. And I think, the events of the last couple of years were interesting enough that they deserve to be shared. For me, I think in general I've been lucky enough to have an okay life. And I don't mean this to be a self pity rant, but the last couple of years were some pretty interesting and pretty rough ones on the whole, particularly in the realm of my career. Um, I moved to Columbus, Ohio, a couple of years ago for a new job, and on paper it was a great move. I was moving from kind of a back office function, doing deposit review and looking for fraud at JP Morgan, to more of a credit and wealth management operations role. It was a decent pay upgrade and not much of a move. And Columbus is a huge base here, so I knew that there would be backup options. And for the first month or two, it worked out okay. But then things started going haywire when I realized that the manager that hired me was actually going to be leaving, and the new manager didn't really like me much, and the senior associates there really did not want to have any new hires, especially one like me without much experience, and they made my life very miserable. And after a year of trying to make it work, I finally, after about the end of the year, I realized they were going to push me out eventually anyway, so I just moved on. And it was kind of a tough year, but I thought, okay, moving on to another role. There was actually a better role that I moved on to here within JP Morgan. I thought, okay, this looks great. Um, then I made kind of a pretty stupid mistake. You have to pass the SIE and Series 7 exams for the role that I was starting in, and for a finance major like me, it really shouldn't have been a problem. But I underestimated the SIE, and JP Morgan has a one and done policy where if you don't pass it on your first try, you are out of that role that you're in. And I underestimated it. I got sick during the time I was studying for it and didn't, try to make up for it after I got better. And I got a 69 when you need a 70 to pass. And I mean that was literally just one question difference on the exam. So I was out on unpaid leave the next day, pretty tough break after only 2 or 3 months in the job role, and I thought, okay, well, I thought it was over then, though, because only about a month later I found, another job with Morgan Stanley that was similar to that here in Columbus. I thought, okay, moving on, life's back to normal here. And now that I swear to you, this is the truth of what happened. I'm not exaggerating this. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Silicon Valley Bank collapse back in March of 2023 and the First Republic Bank collapse and all of those events. But that was when that happened was when I was in that period between those two job roles. I mean, I was in a mandatory FINRA waiting period, which is a financial regulatory agency that you have to be, that mandates you wait 30 days between different roles. And so I left my role at JP Morgan back in January. Technically, I'd have resigned in February. And then I was about to start my new role in early April with Morgan Stanley. But that's when the SVB collapse happened. And Morgan Stanley eliminated the role. And I didn't find out until mid-April. So I was in a pretty rough position with an employment gap, no job, dwindling savings account. Yeah. And I had to turn over every stone in the city of Columbus to find a new job. And I found, luckily, if you want to call it luck, I guess it was luck, never mind. I was lucky to find it, a job with Spectrum that vaguely related to something I did at Verizon many years ago. It's called a credit services professional, and it sounded vaguely similar. But I began to realize after some months of being here why this was the only job available in Columbus. While it's definitely better than nothing, and it's kept me alive, and it, kind of got my career back on track, it is a pretty awful job role. I mean, it's It's essentially just calling people up who are on a 50-day extension who have not, we need the minimum past due payment for their TV, cable, and internet. And, if they don't, you don't fight with them or anything, but you just, say, okay, and you mark them as, they're going to be leaving Spectrum. They're going to be paying someday after the disconnection date and then have their services restored, or you take a payment. And believe it or not, the role is actually much worse than it sounds. Um, because we make 200 calls a day, and at this, I don't know, I would say at least about 20% of the calls that I've done since I've been here are really unpleasant. Like, I mean, I've been called more names and had more aggressive things said to me over the last 6 months than I think I've had in the rest of my life. And it's what makes it really terrible is not just, most customers you deal with are not terrible, but Spectrum puts us in situations that makes it terrible. And Spectrum is a horrible employer, by the way. I know everybody bashes their company, but to be honest with you, working for Spectrum has shown me that a lot of the companies I worked with before now were cream puffs, like JP Morgan, State Street, Verizon, because Spectrum is much worse than the rest of them. And it's like, one example of what I mean is that they'll have us dial people in that have already made a payment, but the payment hasn't cleared since it was made 24 hours ago, so they'll still have us dial them in. And you can imagine the situations that leads to. Just they absolutely don't want to hear from us when they've already made a payment, but nobody refuses to correct this very obvious flaw here. And I've been here now for almost exactly 6 months, and there is no end in sight to getting that flaw corrected. I'm probably going to be out of this job in just a few weeks because I've done a ton of interviews and I'm on the verge of leaving it. So that's why I'm talking about it more openly now, because it's all mostly probably going to be in the hindsight mirrors pretty soon. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm probably only had to do this job for 6 months. At least I hope. I really hope I'll be saying that in a few weeks when I accept an offer with another role. But the thing is I guess you could say there are positives to having things like this happen in life, and you do learn some lessons from job roles, having terrible job roles, and I guess you could say in a way I'm kind of lucky, though at the moment it doesn't feel that way, because when you have a terrible job, it shows you that jobs that you thought before were not terrible, or that you thought were terrible, really are not so much. For instance, my first job I had out of college with Verizon, since it's kind of related to what I do here at Spectrum. I remember at the time when I took it, I thought it was just so lame. I thought it was just so boring. I wasn't getting paid a whole lot to do it. It was just looking through billing contracts, and it was boring, and the people there were boring, and I did not realize how good I had it. it was heaven on earth compared to what I do here. What I do here at Spectrum, because you didn't have to deal with abuse every day. At least you got paid a living wage to do it, and there was a lot of upward potential as well in that role. Here, you're basically just being paid to be abused all day, and the worst abuser is my company. But you do learn, like I said, so you learn to appreciate better, more average job roles when you have a terrible job. And you also learn that the second most important thing that matters next to the work is, like, if you can bear doing the work all day, are the people you're doing it with manageable to be around. And that's a big one, because the job that I moved here for at JP Morgan was a decent job and better than what I have now. But eventually the people, I just couldn't work with them because they just did not want me there. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't change their mind on that one. And I tried harder than I almost had at any other job in my life at that point, because I was afraid of what would happen if it didn't work out. And it just never did. So while that job wasn't as bad as the one I have now, and I wouldn't call it a terrible job, I learned the value of the people you do your job role with in it, and that if you can't get along with them, and if they're just not good coworkers, that you're just eventually going to have to look on to other things, So, those are the positives of having not very good jobs, is that you begin to learn, I guess, to appreciate more normal circumstances. And it's, I think, true in life in general, too. I mean, you begin to learn, the last 2 years, I mean, admittedly, they probably weren't the worst in my life, but within my career, I can say they were the roughest. And in general, they were definitely uniquely challenging years in my life. And, I probably, if given the option, would not care to repeat them, And having time periods like that is good because I think it does help you appreciate more normal circumstances, though eventually life does have to go back to normal because nobody can be in that kind of state forever. But, I think, I hopefully in the long run of life, the last 2 years will be kind of a beneficial experience for me. Because, like I said, what happened with the SVB collapse was almost like a black swan event that's not going to repeat itself very often. And normally, I've usually had good enough circumstances and fortunes to me in life that if I found myself in a job as terrible as the one I have here at Spectrum, I usually could find some other alternative. But in this case, I'm literally one of only, out of the 11 external hires I started with, I'm one of only two that hasn't left at the 6 month mark. And it's mostly just because I'm very, very desperate, you know. So, you know, um, I don't know. Again, I hope this doesn't come off as a big self pity rant. On the whole, I'm a relatively lucky person. I'm lucky that I've been able to hold things together over the last 2 years because there's multiple points where I could have found myself completely broke and homeless and unable to find any job at all other than just like something lifting boxes somewhere. And, I've at least had my health. Um, so I know life could be a lot worse. But I have to admit, the last couple of years were challenging enough that it's rattled me more to my core than anything I've done since I was maybe back in my tween years. you know, that was what I consider up until now maybe the other most challenging period in my life for other unrelated reasons. You know, so as Nietzsche would say, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or as the Joker would say, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stranger. And I think I'll be able to use these lessons going forward, and I think it'll help me be able to reflect better on a lot of things in life. Circumstances outside of work as well, like reflecting on you know relationships, reflecting on just general struggles in life, and how to stay upbeat when things aren't going particularly well as to appreciate when things are going even just moderately well, and realize that that's still relatively good. So, and also one to end it on a happy note, one cool thing that did come of this job for those who watch this because of the content I make on incels and on, you know, how I sometimes talk about, my lack of experience when it comes to dating. Even though I'm not an incel, but I do make videos related to that topic. I have had one good experience in this role, and that the security guard that works at my front desk, I gave her my number on a Joker card, like from the movie The Dark Knight, some months ago, and she did start texting me back, which is something that I've never done before, and I'm 33. I rarely, if I ever, give out my number to people I don't know very well like that, but she had, my badge was broken, so she had to escort me up for 1 week, like up to the check-in station at my section of the building. And I've never seen a security guard upset when you tell them that they don't have to walk up 3 flights of steps just to open a door for you that you could probably, just piggyback off someone else's badge, and come in like that. So when she seemed upset one day that I said, no, that's okay, you don't need to, escort me up the stairs like that, I realized that maybe she wasn't just doing her job and helping me up, and that maybe she actually did like me. And she's actually, quite attractive person and seems like an extremely nice person, even though she said she would rather wait to resume texting me until after I leave the job because she doesn't want to get in trouble with her company, which has a pretty strong no fraternization policy with people who are working with the companies that they do security work for. But, that's one positive thing about it. Just, figured I'd end on a happy note. Like I said, there's always at least some good things, in life, good and bad, And like I said, I hope this will be kind of a, just interesting video for some people, to speculate on. Again, I sit here ranting on camera a lot, but maybe it gives them some, ways to relate to me. If you've had similar periods in life that were either good or bad, or just, I don't know, anything you want to talk about in the comment section, feel free to put it. So other than that, yeah, just wishing everybody watching this, hope you had a good year in 2023. Hope it was on the whole a little easier for you than my year was in 2023, and hope 2024 will be better for both of us. Thanks for watching. Bye.